Washing machines are expensive major appliances. They are expensive to replace and expensive to repair. When they are being repaired, you're most likely to be without a washing machine, probably for weeks. So in this video, in this overview, I'll walk you over some of the systems on the washing machine that are easily replaceable, easily accessible, easy to repair, and what are some of the components that are harder and some that are fails on the washing machine that's completely unreasonable to repair or replace or need major amount of work. So in this video I'll be talking about push buttons on the control panels, whether digital or analog. I've got both sets. I'll be talking about, and I have visuals around, drums and drives and bearings and such parts, electrical motors and pumps and those kind of things, as well as hoses, gaskets and seals. So those would be the four areas of parts that usually go wrong on a washing machine. So let's get started with push buttons and controls. Fairly straightforward. For most of this, and I'll show you, I have two washing machines here, one blue Samsung, whatever it was, and another one is white Frigidaire. So two parts of two washing machines. One is still fairly well together, another one is completely taken apart into all of its body panels and everything is gutted out from it. So I'm going to use all of these parts to walk you through one digital, one analog washing machine part. So let's get started with digital control panels. They are most of these parts, whether it's control panel or mostly everything on a washing machine, all you need is a Phillips #2 screwdriver, seriously, and a pair of pliers, and that's for the hose clamps. Okay, so most everything just snap fits into place, and this entire control panel just fits on the frame of the washing machine. So fairly straightforward. This whole thing just clips on and off with some of these tabs that you see here on all around there. Okay, doesn't need any tools whatsoever to remove this component. You need to disconnect it from the wiring harness there. Clip, clip, done. So if any of these push buttons go wrong on a digital washing machine, they are cheap. They are $1, $2, 30 cents, whatever, push buttons and switches. However, they are solid. They are soldered onto a circuit board that's hiding behind this plastic housing here. You can see some ribbon wire going through there. So you have to get ready for soldering and doing electronics repair. If you don't know how to do these things, then forget about it. But other than that, the switches, all switches have a lifespan of, say, 1 million switchings. It's called a cycle. It's not the washing cycle, but it's a switches cycle, okay? And say 1 million cycles or 100,000 cycles, whatever it is. So after a while they fail. I don't know if they outlast the washing machine. They may or they may not. So on a digital one, get ready for soldering them in place and out of place. But otherwise it's doable. It's fairly straightforward. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. You're not going to be in 15 minutes an appliance technician here in this video. This is an overview of things. On the mechanical side of things, here is the control panel buttons of a mechanical model, the white one. It's got this big selector knob and you can start the washing cycle or whatever you select. And this is a 2-position switch. This is a 3-position switch, very simple. And like I said, all of these are friction fit and they come apart without tools. Just pull off the little wiring there, the little wiring harness connectors of the switch, and if any of these switches fail, just take it to an electronics parts dealer. You'll find numbers, ID numbers or something on it. You can easily find these parts, inexpensive, super easy to replace and repair and access. This one is this selector knob. This might be a little tricky to source it out, and I just want to show you that this one has a threaded button on it. So let me just pull it off there. Alright, so it may not be a push button all the time. Sometimes it's like this. So with that said, once you find one that actually works, this white washing machine was thrown away because this part failed on it. Otherwise it was perfectly fine, give or take. So control buttons are fairly easy to do, so that's all they involve. This one is the latch on the washing machine. This latch is a switch. It is you know, when you close the door, I've taken off the door there, it's on the ground, and the latch on the door will engage the switching with the plunger on the switches. So this is, look at it, it's got 2 screws in it. You can undo 2 screws fairly easily, pull off this one, and this one, and the connectors are shaped in a way that they only go back to the same spot. You cannot possibly by mistake disconnect this one and connect it to the wrong spot. It's not happening. Alright. Let me go back to the connectors over here. So some of these you might want to label which one was on which side, but most connectors only go together one way. This is a pressure switch. It's unlikely that it goes wrong, but hey, you know, disconnect the hose, you know, with a pair of pliers if you need a pair of pliers, you know, undo the hose, undo the wires to replace it. Most of the wiring harness is held in place very simply. I'll show you, by either zap straps or, oops, just give me a sec here, it's being caught on everything. Just a sec. There, take a look. Either it's on zap straps or these kind of connectors that you can twist together when the harness is in place and then untwist. Super straightforward, yes? So you can see these connectors everywhere in the washing machine. You can loosen an appropriate length of the wiring harness and get access to your switches and whatever you need. The motor, here is a motor, it just happens to be sitting here. I'll talk about this motor. This motor is pumping water in and out of the drum. It's usually located underneath the drum and is bolted down to the floor with typically 2 screws and somewhat flexibly mounted with these rubber legs on it. This motor is also super easy to access, and on most washing machines the panel on the bottom comes out, or that's not the bottom, sorry, panel at the back comes out so you can access the motor or some such thing. So that's the motor. You can also cannibalize some of the motor parts to replace some other parts on another model, you know, because the parts may fit. So this is what I mean by some parts on some models fitting some other completely unrelated models. Think about it. This is the pump, the water pump. This has approximately the same motor size and diameter there as this pump on the blue washing machine. Alright, this is the base plate of this pump. It was mounted flexibly there, so leave the mounting plate in place, and to these 2 tabs there, I'm sure you can attach a pump that works and is completely unrelated to that same to the washing machine. This intake hose probably attaches to the front. You can make it work, even if it's not, then just replace this one with this one and bolt this one to the floor with the same rubber thingies, so it's somewhat flexible, you know. And hoses wise, of course, the hoses may or may not fit. If these hose clamps don't work, then get bigger ones, that, you know, the one that needs the screwdriver on it, whatever. You can make it work with with different rubber hoses. If you don't find the right rubber hoses, just get one of your 96 Chevy Radiator, and you know, just find some rubber hoses somewhere from your motorcycle or whatever. These parts here, this is part of the wiring harness, but it's actually not really just connected to the wiring harness, because these are two valves, and you connect the hot and cold lines to these two ports here. So if anything cracks or breaks on this one, this part isn't made by Samsung. This plastic molding isn't made by Electrolux or Frigidaire. This actually is made in something Illinois, and yeah, there you can read it. So this plastic part may be just available if it happens to crack here at the base. You don't have to replace the actual valves necessarily. And then if you have to hook up, yeah, because the wiring connectors will be different from one pump to another pump. Hey, a wire is a wire, just connect the wire and twist it together. And by the way, these connectors are available from your local auto supply stores. For you can buy a dozen for $1, something like that. Alright, and you can totally make, let me see, where's the connector on this one? There, look at the shape of that connector there, and the shape of that connector there. You know, here the same connector might actually work for this one as it does for this one. Just lock out. So okay, so that's what I mean. You can be a little more creative. It's not as simple as maybe replacing a switch. This needs a little creativity with these hoses. But so that's the next topic here. Some of it, hoses, covered a little bit. Some more stuff about hoses and seals in general. They don't need tools other than maybe a pair of pliers, if that, because some of them are just designed to be hand sprung, and most of the seals that may be leaking or whatever, they're just friction fit, and they come out just like so without seriously any tools, just like that. So that's hoses and seals. Let's talk a little bit about motors and drive systems. Here we have a belt drive system where a motor is driving the drum through this V-belt. This V-belt has grooves and everything. So over here we have a direct drive system where there is no belt. This part is the stator part. It's mounted on the drum itself, on the plastic casing around the drum. And this one is the rotor part. The rotor, this copper coil, the stator fits inside the drum, inside this rotor, and everything is mounted on the splined shaft of the washer that comes out from the drum. So either which way, motors are mounted typically away from sources of water where it could get shorted out. So motors usually last a long time, but they don't last forever. Motors also have bearings, so if they do give up, this is what you can do. There's no need to replace the motor with its brackets necessarily from the manufacturer. And again, Samsung or Bosch doesn't manufacture motors. These motors are, just take the bracket apart. You can see that there is this front bracket and there is this rear holding bracket. This is the motor, and the motor can be taken apart from this bracket by undoing 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. Let's see this nameplate on this motor. It doesn't say Samsung on it anywhere. It was made by whatever that company there, so it's completely unrelated to the brand of the washing machine. You can find motors with the same RPM at your local electrical supply store that have the same shaft, and on the same shaft you can mount exactly the same spindle or exactly the same drive wheel that's mounted on this one as is. If something goes wrong with the windings on this stator part, I'm not saying that that you rewind this yourself at home in your garage, because this one pretty much needs a motor winding technician. However, this part is available, again, just like a motor is available from an electrical supply store. If these V-belts start slipping or otherwise damaged, there is no adjusting mechanism to put more tension on them. They just need to be replaced. Fairly easy to access, fairly easy to remove. Just loosen the mounting bolts on the motor, usually 3 or 4 of these mounting bolts. Slip the belt off the wheel at both ends, and you're done. And then you can just take it to the store as is, and there are numbers on the belt that can identify it. Here there's barcode and everything on it, so it's fairly straightforward business. Some other hardware items that might need replacement, as well as may just need some little cleaning. Following items I have noticed. This wheel here is broken. Okay, if it needs replacement, you can just weld it back together. This spoke here is broken there through its entire thickness. It's gone, but it doesn't affect spinning. It might be causing imbalance, but it doesn't really affect spinning, because with the belt looped all around it, it's always being compressed. It was working perfectly fine with a crack at that particular location. To remove it, you need to take out a single bolt from the end of this drive shaft here, or drum shaft, so not rocket science. Other items that you can perfectly do, actually 2 things. Well, it's one thing. Mold. Look at this amount of mold here that's growing underneath and around this drum here. This is inside the plastic drum on the stainless steel drum. It's impossible to access it, but it can affect your health. Okay, wherever the laundry is, if you live close to the laundry and it doesn't have, the laundry room doesn't have ventilation, doesn't have a door on it, it might be affecting you. This Frigidaire model was an older model, and it just doesn't get enough flush around the drum to remove all this lint and sediment and whatever that is made of. It's molding and is compacted in there. Disgusting. We're done with it. It's inaccessible because it's inside the plastic drum in which the steel drum is spinning. So some other parts are perfectly accessible, such as this dishwasher dispensing tray, and you can see, yes, plastic does mold. You can see mold and organic matter molding there that could have been cleaned or accessed easily, and all of the electrical components are well away from it, strategically positioned, so when you spill something on it, you're not going to electrocute yourself. There you can see that's mold that's easy to access and easy to remove. It seriously, it just there, it just needs doing. I'll show you the plastic casing, and then we'll get back to the bearings and finish with the bearings. On the plastic casing, this is where the steel drum mounts inside this plastic drum or tank, and that's the rest of the mold baking and caking in the sun here, and that's a design flaw, that this sediment doesn't get rinsed. Now let's talk about the bearings. So the bearings of the washing machine, actually these bearings and that seal actually came from this white washing machine here, live inside this plastic drum here in that opening there. And they are press fitted in place real tight. Through the middle of the hole, the drum shaft slides through, and that's how the drum spins inside this plastic drum or plastic housing. And this is just the outside of it. There is also a sleeve, a steel sleeve that's pressed in place here, in which the bearings are. Again, so accessing the bearings, as you can see, you have to get rid of the entire drum it's a major amount of work if one of these bearings fail, and they do fail because they are, remember, this cavity here, or this tank here, is about this much full of water at all times. Even if they keep water level here just below the bearing, you know, the automatic water level would be set here, it still splashes all the time around, making the bearings corrode. And this is a double sealed bearing, so you don't see the rubber rolling elements inside, but you do see bubbling corrosion signs on this one. If you want nice bearings, again, bearings are not made by, just like the motors, not made by Samsung, they are made by FAG or NGK, or I don't know, some Japanese bearing manufacturers. This one, of course, is Chinese bearing. That doesn't mean it can't be good, but on the other washing machine, this is failed, the bearing has failed. Oh, and by the way, I'm referring to this unit throughout the entire video as washing machine, just to avoid confusion with washer. That's a washer. Alright, and this is washing machine, but I know they are commonly referred to as washer, especially in North America. So, but I just wanted to avoid confusion with that. So what happened to this bearing is that the drum is flexibly mounted inside with those steel springs, and there is struts underneath, much like the suspension on a car. You can see some of these struts at the back there. Alright, so those are like shock absorbers and springs inside. And, however, so there is some natural movement that occurs while it's being, while the clothes are being washed, but when I hold it in place, it still wobbles this much. That's without moving the springs. So this amount of motion is caused by the failed and collapsed bearing that's at the back. So replacing the bearings in this blue Samsung is a huge amount of work, and that's why the owner just decided to just entirely get rid of it. This is the rear bearing, it's probably fine. The front bearing that faces the wet compartment and the wet service, that's the one that failed. I'll dig it out and we'll show you. So, last thing, although I will get back to that collapsed bearing, is disposal. Washing machines come with these counterweights. They are either steel like this, they're very heavy, or concrete that's bolted onto the drum. Probably your best bet is just take it apart into its body panels like this. It's just, like I said, has a bunch of short screws in it, needs a single screwdriver. It all comes apart. The spring is very strong. Don't get hurt with working around the spring, but when you remove all of the screws from it and you just kick it on its side, it's gonna fall apart enough so the spring will relax enough so you don't get hurt. The seal at the front just comes away from the sheet metal. Also, the seal is, yeah, let me see, that one has a hose clamp, a screw type hose clamp with some rust and some deposit on it that holds the seal there in place. You can see the edge of the hose clamp. So, but it comes apart fairly straightforward manner. So that's basically it. I have some more work to do on this one to take it entirely apart, and then piece by piece it's easy to load it into anybody's car and just take it to recycling, and you can take one apart in an hour. So I'll get that bearing dug out from. So I've got the bearings out. They're very nice quality, there's nothing wrong with them. KBC bearings. So everything is in pieces. What was not working is the arm. This arm was broken totally. That belongs to that drum. There you can see the casting alloy just completely fell apart, mostly due to some chemical reaction, because it's in so many pieces. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this before. So this aluminum alloy just got dissolved. Basically that's what caused the drum to flex inside the plastic drum. So the bearings are fine. However, I do have, look, there's barely any corrosion on the opposite side either, but I've got for you the other bearings from the other washing machine. This one is, none of these are failed, but they're both worn. I just popped the seal open with a putty knife, and you can see that this one is more grease color, like a little whiter. This one is darker oxidized grease. And if I can put this to the microphone, you can listen to it. And that is the sound of worn bearing that doesn't run smoothly anymore. So these bearings don't last forever, and replacing it or accessing it is major work, because you need to take out the entire drum. You have to split the plastic drum halves. So all I have is now, because these are welded together, spot welded, so I have to put a grinder on it and just cut it. I mean, 3 to 5 cuts, so that it can be taken to the recycling